Far leftists oppose free speech because they've never known it. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and even though I am 35 and therefore at least 10 years older than the vast majority of fourth wave, intersectional feminist, social justice, warrior, communist, or ANTIFA type people, I grew up in a similar environment to what I think they grew up in. You see, most of these people are under the age of 25, which means that they grew up not simply during the Obama administration, where racism, homophobia, sexism, and bigotry of all types was considered completely taboo on a cultural level, but also these people grew up almost entirely isolated in political correct Facebook echo chambers. I had a similar experience growing up in the 90s because although my middle school was particularly rough and everybody was a dick to each other all day, every day, my high school was super PC. You see, I went to a hippie-ass alternative high school where it would be a major issue if anybody was ever bigoted towards a specific student, or even overtly rude and bullying. In a certain sense, we didn't actually really have freedom of speech entirely at my high school. Not because there were official rules against saying certain words or making certain types of jokes, but rather, there was immense pressures that were enforced socially, not just by the teachers, but by the students themselves. Probably even more so by the students themselves. And this was all made possible because there were only a few hundred students and about 15 to 20 teachers at any given time. As a community, my high school was able to form a generally acceptable consensus on what type of speech was considered appropriate, and we enforced those rules socially. For example, we had a lounge for a while where students would hang out and tell stories and jokes all day, or talk about music or what have you. However, one day, a student told a super funny but anti-Semitic and racist joke that you can get me to tell on a live stream if you remember to ask, but I don't want to repeat in this video simply because it's pretty long. When the student told the joke, he was overheard by a particularly self-righteous and perpetually PC Jewish vegan lesbian who freaked the fuck out and eventually demanded that the lounge be destroyed.
What?
Somehow, she basically got her way, and she was able to replace the comfortable couch with a very non-comfortable couch and get rid of all of the comfy chairs. The teachers allowed this to happen because they were very concerned with being PC, and truthfully, nobody saw much of a purpose behind having a student lounge where kids could just sit around all day and cut class and stuff. That's basically what happened in the lounge. Still, there was never some big authoritarian ruling that decided the lounge had to be destroyed. It was just one self-righteous Jewish vegan lesbian that nobody even really liked anyway. But people still lived in fear of pissing her off.
What?
That said, I think that the far left, social justice warrior Antifa type crowd hates freedom of speech because they've simply never known it. When I was in high school, I didn't have full freedom of speech in a social sense, and I even somewhat appreciated the comfort of living in an environment where I never had to worry about homophobic comments because at my rough middle school, I was bullied endlessly for being queer. So it was kind of nice that people couldn't call me a faggot without getting in deep social trouble. However, when I went to college in New York City, I learned the value of freedom of speech as I studied media, theater, and how these things influenced and were influenced by politics. I went to the type of school where students were encouraged to speak their minds and have conversations with each other if they were offended by something. However, these days, it seems that college students are obviously not being trained to have such conversations, as you can hear about from professors like God Saad and Jonathan Haidt. And from what it would sound like, these students don't even have substantive conversations with their friends. Most of these people have friend groups that are tied together by way of social media, but nobody can be honest or even tell a silly joke, or they will be dogpiled in call-out culture publicly. These people have never known a world where people can openly share their thoughts on social media, because that has been taboo for at least 5 years or so. And these people certainly aren't learning the value of freedom of speech in college. So what happens when a new movement of free speech loving shitlords who enjoy making semi-offensive or even totally offensive jokes comes along? Well, these far leftists are not just terrified of this type of rhetoric coming from people who don't play by the PC rules, but they want to stop it. And not only do they want to stop it, they don't even understand why it is important to be able to say whatever you want. Because truthfully, most of these people have never really been able to, because their social circles never allowed it, and they were never taught in school how important freedom of speech is. So they're willing to burn signs that say free speech. That is why. That's all I have to say for today. Share your feelings about why freedom of speech is important in the comments. Help me out on Patreon if you want me to keep making videos, because it's really hard to get paid on YouTube. Just $1 helps, and stay tuned.